Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. I am your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, the pastor of the Freedom's Way Baptist Church here in Santa Clarita, California. Thanks for joining us today. Got a great show on tap for you. As promised, last week I had teased at the end of the show that we would have Jonathan Hatami with us, and in just a few moments we're going to have him come into the studio live. He is with us, and we are glad that he is, and so we'll pickle some questions on Jonathan, and of course, Lord willing, he will be running against George Gascon next year, and will, Lord willing, unseat George Gascon to be our new district attorney here in Los Angeles County. Last week we talked a little bit about all these boycotts that have been going on. And I just got a quick update here right before we get into the show, or the main part of the show. Obviously, last week the big deal was Target. And I just got an article today, hat tip Red State here, from May 31st, today, last day of May, by the way. It's amazing how quickly this year is fleeting by us. But it says here, this again, hat tip Red State, says we've been watching how both Bud Light and Target seem to have committed brand suicide with their go woke, go broke moves. And it says here, in reference to Bud Light has taken a tremendous hit, losing almost 30% in sales volume, as well as 25.7% in sales revenue through May 20th. And it's still spiraling out of control. In fact, by the middle of June or end of June, depending on sales, it looks like Bud Light might actually lose their number one status as the number one selling brand of beer. Now, I'm not a beer drinker. Some of you out there that listen may be, but the fact is, they've had that status for a very, very long time, and to lose that would be an interesting situation. And then, of course, you've got Target, which went full woke. Now, I need to offer a caveat here. For those of you out there that are listening and say, well, Pastor Cook, Target actually went into this pride thing a decade ago with their bathroom situation. I totally understand that, and I haven't shopped there for almost a decade. So I just want to let you know that I've been very consistent on this point, but they have just upped the ante and have gotten far more brazen, and now they are targeting things from K through 12 school districts to adopt policies that will keep parents in the dark about their child's school and gender and things of that nature. And they hired a Satanist, essentially, that was also transgendered, and all kinds of horrible things that are they're doubling down on stupid. And so, according to this article, they've dropped more than $9 billion in market cap. Now, let me just say that they can make that up in almost one day. I mean, they're a huge, huge business. And I'm not saying that this is a huge blow to them, but it is a blow, nevertheless. When you have shares that fall, 3.66%, and you have an eighth straight decline of losing, that is a big deal. The point is this, folks. You can't just look at the news headline and say, hey, look what we did in a week's time, and then give up and start going back. Folks, you need to be consistent. You need to continue to find mom and pop stores and other organizations and other places that support your values, whether you are a Christian or just a political conservative or a Christian conservative or just somebody out there that doesn't want to have all of this weird stuff in your face or your kid's face or your grandkid's face. Then you need to purposefully seek these places out and buy. That's the great thing about living in America and about living in a capitalist society, is we can do those kinds of things. And so again, as folks are saying, if you go woke, it's possible you can go broke. And by the way, just since last Wednesday, I got another report here from May 30th. Another retail store is facing a boycott over Pride merchandise for babies. And this time, it's not North Face, which, of course, we talked about last Wednesday. It's not Target, which we just got done talking about. It's Kohl's. Now, this one hits home because my wife loves Kohl's. She visits it quite frequently. In fact, every time I come home, there's a new Kohl's box on the front porch. So Kohl's is something that we've been shopping there for a very long time, and we like Kohl's. But we were we were at our local Kohl's here recently, and we saw that it was selling some Pride merchandise for 3-month-old babies. And again, all I got to say is this. These are the same people that are saying we're not targeting children, but yet it seems like the merchandise is targeting children. Here's a tweet from Rebecca Downs. It says, quote, being curious about boycott Kohl's, I checked out what Pride items were being sold. This does, in fact, include products for babies and children. And it says here, all I had to do was search for Pride items to be directed to be a part of the directed to a part of the website that promotes Pride Month even more in depth. Okay. And then it says this. This is something that was featured on one of the Kohl's websites. It says, quote, love is our favorite color. Celebrate Pride Month. The website reads, with color in all rainbows. The message goes on to read, quote, we are committed to amplifying and affirming the voices of the LGBTQIA plus community, celebrating the joy that comes from living authentically and unapologetically, not just this month, but all year long. And again, I'm not necessarily against selling this stuff. All I'm saying is, why does it have to be in our face? What if you walked into a Target, you walked into a Kohl's, and there was a huge display of Baptist memorabilia? Now, of course, I'm a little biased about that because obviously I'm pastor of a Baptist church. But what if it was a Catholic memorabilia? What if it was a Lutheran display? Whatever, doesn't matter. What if it was Republican Party headquarters merchandise? What if it was GOP Central and that's all you saw when you walked in? I guarantee you somebody on the left or on the squishy right would complain about that. Why? Because they're really not about inclusion. They're really about exclusion, so long as you only include what they want. Well, that's the end of my rant there about Target and the rest of the woke companies out there that are going headlong for all of these for all this pride stuff. But last week we promised you to have Jonathan Hatami. Jonathan is actually coming in studio right now. We're glad that he's here today. He was able to go down to the state of the county address by our favorite Catherine Barger around here. And Jonathan, you're on mic there. I think it's live. What's the state of the county?
Well, first, I want to tell you, Pastor Cook, thank you so much for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here and talk to you. I went to your church with my family, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, and you have a great church and a great congregation. And so I'm really, really pleased that you invited me here to come and speak to you.
Well, Jonathan, we were real impressed with what you said there. And of course, you come from good stock, and I appreciate your pastor there in Lancaster. And of course, I've known him for a great many years, and of course, I trust him. And so I want to start off by giving you this story that I just pulled off of Red State yesterday. Actually, it's today's Red State. Oh, yesterday's. And it says, violent criminal let loose by woke DA George Gascon kills his neighbor. And it goes on to say that this guy was arrested and then he was basically released and ended up killing his neighbor over a dispute about noise. And it says this. Here's Gascon defending his dangerous policies and releasing this individual. He says, quote, the defendant in this case met the specific eligibility criteria for mental health diversion. A court-appointed psychologist deemed him suitable for the treatment program, and our deputy district attorney agreed to the defense request for mental health diversion. And it goes on to basically say the same junk that Gascon has been doing for a couple years now, which is, yeah, he was in prison, now he's not in prison. Everything, he met all the criteria, but he ends up, or this person ends up killing another person. I guess here's my question in the opening salvo for you, Jonathan. I kind of understand why you're running to replace George Gascon, but just tell the crowd who may not know you today, why are you running to replace George Gascon?
I will tell you first, based upon what you brought up, I'm running because of Jessica Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica was murdered by an individual who is her neighbor, an individual who had stabbed somebody in the past.
Yeah.
The police in their report put attempted murder on that case. He stabbed somebody in the past. Because of George Gascon's policies, they allowed that individual to get mental health diversion, which means being released back into our community
Sure.
with our family and our children. And less than a year later, he's murdering his neighbor.
Yeah.
And it's just atrocious
Mm-hmm.
that the district attorney's policies are actually against public safety instead of for public safety. So when people come and ask me, why are you running for DA? Well, I'm running for DA for my children,
Mm-hmm.
for their safety, for your children, Pastor Cook,
Mm-hmm.
for the safety of your children, for the safety of all the children in LA County, and for the safety of your family
Yeah.
and your neighbors and your friends. Because George Gascon has implemented these policies, and these policies are basically anti-public safety.
Mm-hmm.
They're pro-criminal, pro-wrongdoer, and they're anti-victim.
Yeah.
They don't support victims. They don't support the rights of victims. I can tell you, and your listeners need to hear this, that about 3 weeks ago, another individual who had stabbed multiple people was given mental health diversion, and she was released back into the community with very limited supervision.
Yeah.
And she ended up killing the father of her children.
Oh, great.
She stabbed him to death. This
Yeah.
was 3 weeks ago. So now you have two cases within 3 weeks or 4 weeks apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two victims in this case. The victim in that case, his name was Dennis, and who didn't need to die.
Yeah.
That this didn't need to happen. And I want your listeners to also know this. About a year ago, because of George Gascon's policies, there was another individual who was a criminal, a wrongdoer, who George Gascon removed his prior strike allegations, gave this individual probation. He was released. He was a felon. He ended up getting a firearm, and he killed two police officers.
Wow.
In El Monte.
Yeah.
Remember
that story.
and Santana. And so you see, here's a growing list of victims
Yeah.
who have been murdered
Yeah.
as a result of George Gascon's policy.
Sure.
I could tell you also, I have a friend. His name is Brad Neal. He lives in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
His son Brandon lived in Venice. Brandon and his girlfriend were brutally murdered by an individual who was arrested and released on zero bail because of George Gascon's policies. And then he went out and got a gun, and then he went out and killed Brad Neal's son and Brad Neal's son's girlfriend.
Wow.
His son was named Brandon. So and I could sit here with you for hours and talk to you about all these victims who have been murdered as a result of George Gascon's policies. And so that's why I'm running.
Yeah.
I'm running because this has become a serious public safety issue.
Yeah.
And so when my kids go to school and I walk them to school, when my kids come home, I'm worried about their safety.
Yeah.
When they're out there playing in front of my house, I'm paranoid. I'm worried about their safety. My wife, who's a police officer, who's on duty now, I'm worried about her safety.
Sure.
And the safety of her partners. And I'm worried about the safety of your family, of your congregation. People in LA County, they can't walk their dog. They can't wear a watch. They can't go to the supermarket. They can't go out to eat. They can't run or jog down the street with headphones on because they're afraid somebody's going to attack them.
Yeah.
And so this isn't the Los Angeles that I think we need or want or should have. And I think for people like you and for Pastor Chappell and for many pastors in this community, your congregation's important.
Yeah.
And people are leaving.
Yeah.
They're leaving Los Angeles.
And they're leaving the state.
They are leaving your congregation.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you're a believer, you need to stay here and fight.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we're all just passing through while we're here. But while we're here, we need to do whatever we can to make sure our community's safe.
Yeah.
So don't leave.
Yeah.
I get so many people on my social media say, you should just leave.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to fight for my children. I'm going to fight for my family. I'm going to fight for your children and your family. I don't want people to leave.
Yeah.
This is the battleground.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
It's not Utah. It's not Nevada. It's not Arizona. It's not places that are easy.
Yeah.
It's right here in Los Angeles. And we need more believers. We need more warriors who are willing to stay and are willing to fight for our children and our families.
I believe that completely. In fact, I've been preaching that evangelistically with great fervency over the past 3 years or so, especially since the dawn of COVID back in 2020, when things just spiraled out of control in a lot of different ways as well. But let me ask you this: if you're just joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit, we are talking to Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami. And some of you might know the name because he was a very successful prosecutor back in March for the torture and murder of little Anthony Avalos, which of course happened a few years ago, but finally justice was prevailed in that situation. But when did you have the epiphany, Jonathan? When did you have this realization? Because obviously you're working for George Gascon, and he comes in and takes over for Jackie Lacey. And when did you realize this guy is not just your average Democrat? This guy is a radical, far leftist that you can't rationalize with.
And I'm going to tell you this, Pastor, and I think it's important for people to hear. I'm a Democrat, and so what's happened to my party is there is a small group of very radical people that have taken over the party, and they're loud, and so they're very, very loud. They have a lot of power with the media, and so they have really, I think, scared a lot of people into not doing the right thing. They've scared a lot of people into not standing up and doing the right thing. And so, but I do believe the majority of people in Los Angeles, and I think the majority of the people in the United States are in the middle. They're either left of center or they're right of center, but they're in the middle, and they want public safety.
Yeah.
I don't know any Republican or any Democrat or any declined estate who says, I want my children or family to be killed. I want my house to be burglarized.
Yeah.
I want somebody to be kidnapped. I don't know anybody who's for that.
Yeah.
But this radical group, they're okay with stealing.
Yeah.
Stealing is mentioned in the Bible as you don't do it.
Yeah.
This is thousands of years.
You mean there's no caveat for $995?
No.
Okay.
And so we teach our kids, don't steal.
Yeah.
But this radical group is okay with stealing.
Yeah.
They've said that you could steal a catalytic converter and it's the car's fault.
Yeah.
You could go into a store and steal something and it's the fault of society. That group, I don't believe the majority of the people support that.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
It's just not rational and it's not reasonable. And I fight for kids, and kids have no political party.
Yeah.
They're not Republicans, they're not Democrats, they're not declined estate. And so, I do believe that the majority of us, left of center and right of center, can all agree that public safety is number one.
Yeah.
George Gascon doesn't believe that.
Yeah.
This is the major problem. George Gascon believes that the criminal or the wrongdoer is the most important.
Yeah.
George Gascon doesn't believe the victim's important. George Gascon doesn't believe justice is important.
Yeah.
George Gascon believes in equity in a way that it helps the wrongdoer or the criminal, and it leaves out the victim or the victim's family. And when George Gascon came into the office, I was handling very, very big child murder cases.
Sure.
And he even wanted to remove allegations and enhancements on those cases.
Sure.
And I believe that I'm fighting for children because that's something God wants me to do. I do. And so when he said, Hatami, you can't do your job, that was a problem for me.
Sure.
It was a problem inside.
Yeah.
Like in my heart.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time operating just as like a person.
Yeah.
Because that's why I became a DA.
Yeah.
And so I really had to think about what I was going to do. Was I going to sit back and be quiet like a lot of people do?
Yeah.
It's the safe thing to do. Or was I going to speak out? And I tried many different ways to get him to change his policy. He refused to do it. And so I spoke out and I started fighting against him. And so I think that, was really the beginning of this. And even how I met Pastor Chappell was through that, because I was going to Christ Lutheran out here in Santa Clarita, and Pastor Chappell had seen me on TV on Fox fighting against George Gascon, and he actually contacted Jackie Lacey Jackie Lacey then gave Pastor Chappell my number, and then Pastor Chappell contacted me and said, "Hey, we want you to come up to Lancaster Baptist, and we want to pray for you and your family."
Yeah.
And my first response was, "You're open during COVID?" and Pastor Chappell said, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're open during
Yeah,
COVID."
well, great.
Uh,
Well, we're gonna continue talking here to Jonathan Hatami. Of course, he's our deputy district attorney and is running to replace George Gascon. We're pleased to have him today on Politics in the Pulpit. We'll ask him a few more questions, so please hang on. All right, we're back here live on KHTS and hometown station here on AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. And this is Politics in the Pulpit. Again, this is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook. We are talking today live and in studio with Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami, who is attempting, by God's grace, to unseat the regime of George Gascon here in LA County. And many of us could probably say something, or maybe we knew somebody that was affected by some of the policies of George Gascon. But one of the things that Jonathan brought up during the last bit was this notion of staying here in California and fighting. And I appreciate that because I have seen so many people leave Freedom's Way Baptist Church, and I've seen people leave the county, and I've seen people leave the state. I mean, I just was just connected with the Epoch Times the other day, and they put together this 2-hour show of some sort talking about how 800,000 people have vacated the state of California. That's a lot of people, and I think New York is right on our heels. And it's mainly because of bad policies. And one of the things you had mentioned in our last talk here was that you're running as a Democrat. And I think it's important for people to know that we've had Democrats in this country that we've rallied around. That there was a time in our country where you could be a Republican, you can be a Democrat, and you can still be friends and have civil discourse. Nobody today thinks of Harry Truman as a Democrat or Republican. He was a Democrat. Same thing with FDR. Same thing with JFK or Robert FK, who's now running for the Democratic ticket. These are guys that I think we could have relationships with. But as you say, there is a small cabal of people that have kind of become the loud voices within the Democratic Party. It's almost like Ronald Reagan in 1964 when he said, "Why have you left the Democratic Party?" He says, "I didn't leave it. The Democratic Party left me." And he ended up switching to be a Republican. So I also supported Rick Caruso against the current mayor in Los Angeles. And I knew that he was a Democrat as well. I also knew his heart is a little bit as well. So, but and it was unfortunate. I really thought we had a chance with Rick Caruso, and that'd be wouldn't that be great if you win next year? Rick Caruso would have been the mayor. That would have been an interesting team there. But let me ask you this, Jonathan: should Jonathan Hatami win for DA in LA County next year, what would be your job on day one?
So the first thing I would do is revoke every single policy George Gascon has implemented.
Yeah.
He's implemented 66 blanket directives. He's reversed some of them, but I would revoke them all. We would go back to following the law.
Yeah.
And our mission would be public safety.
Yeah.
And so it's not too difficult to follow the law.
No.
I
don't think so.
I always tell people it's not too difficult not to commit a felony. So it's not too difficult to follow the law. And so we would revoke every single policy that George Gascon has implemented.
Our board operator is laughing. Is it hard to follow the law, Shane? What say you, Shane? Do you have a problem with that, or
no?
Do you want Hatami to put you in jail?
Not at all. I'm laughing in agreement. It's not that hard to not commit a felony.
However, I do find it hard to stay within the speed limit on the 14 freeway.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. I feel like that's our version of the German Autobahn.
I think you're right. And here's the thing. You and I are Christians, and so people sin.
Yeah.
And we're humans.
Yeah.
So people do make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I've accepted that, and I believe in that, and I believe in people. People make mistakes.
Sure.
And so we do have to have mercy.
Yeah.
But we have to have justice before we have mercy.
Absolutely.
And that means people need to be held accountable and responsible for what they do. And then if we can help them and they want to be rehabilitated, then we're going to try to do that to the best of our ability.
Exactly.
So we're going to be empathetic. We're going to be Christians. We're going to help people. But at the same instance, if you're hurting people, if you're molesting children, if you're raping people, if you're murdering people, yes, you are going to be held accountable for your actions.
Yeah.
Day 2, I'm going to go make sure we hire more deputy district attorneys. We're short over 200 deputy district attorneys. That only hurts the community.
And this is because people just stepped away.
That's it. No one wants to work for George Gascon.
Yeah.
There's a large group of people who have left or retired, and George Gascon can't hire enough people. We just had an open hiring. A little over 100 people applied. We usually have between 800 and 1,200 people apply.
Wow.
And so no one wants to be deputy district attorneys here in Los Angeles because of George Gascon. And so I'm going to walk up to the board of supervisors and I'm going to tell the supervisors we need to hire over 200 deputy district attorneys. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that we bring them in. Third thing I'm going to do is meet with everybody, meet with all of my justice partners, the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, my board of supervisors, and tell them, number one, we are going to start following the law. We are going to start prosecuting crime. We're going to start holding people accountable for committing crime. And I want to collaborate with everybody to let them know this is the mission and I need your help in implementing that. Mm-hmm. Just like the Metro. We have a major issue in public transportation. They just came out and said that they're going to try to charge people more money for traveling on the freeway because they want people to use public transportation. Yeah. I hate to tell people this, but violent crime has risen 34% on the Metro.
Yeah.
And just regular crimes, just quality of life crimes have risen 600%.
Wow.
Nobody wants to go on public transportation. There's people using drugs down there. There's people defecating. They're urinating. Women are being sexually harassed constantly.
Yeah.
People are being violently hurt. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
We've even had our board of supervisors tell people don't go on public transportation. It's dangerous.
I've heard them.
Yes. So you really have this situation where people up in Sacramento, they're just tone deaf.
Yeah.
And that's like what we talk about when you talk about politics. You have a small group of people. The fentanyl crisis, that's the same thing. There was a small group of Democrats that were against implementing better and tougher laws for fentanyl dealers. I'm for better and tougher laws for fentanyl dealers. Fentanyl dealers are killing our children.
Yeah.
And so if you're dealing fentanyl, you need to be prosecuted. If you deal fentanyl and trick a child and a child dies, you need to be prosecuted with second-degree murder. Clear cut. If you're selling an enormous amount of fentanyl, we need to charge you with a larger crime. Make sure you're in custody longer.
Yeah.
These are common sense things. And what I'm telling you is most Democrats and most Republicans are for that.
Yeah.
There's only a small group that is against prosecuting fentanyl dealers.
Yeah.
And what they do is they use a narrative. They say, oh, it's a war on drugs. The thing is, I'm not talking about users.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about dealers.
Yeah.
Now, users, this is what I'm going to say. I'm a Christian. I want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're addicted to drugs, we're going to do everything we can to help you.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't help yourself, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But dealers, that's a totally different situation. If you're out there dealing fentanyl, which is a death drug, you need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
I know this. I'm going to ask you to prognosticate here and put on your professorial hat for just a second. But why do you think some of the Democrats here in California, especially up in Sacramento in particular, why would they not want to get a little harsher on these fentanyl dealers? And why do you think guys like Scott Wiener and others just basically, is it in the name of equity, their weird perverse view of that? Why do you think they don't want to go on record and say, hey, we need to have tougher penalties on these guys?
So I think there's a small group that is controlling the larger group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have some politicians on both sides that are afraid to just do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to answer just to Democrats and Republicans. I'm going to answer to everybody. And I'm also beholden to one person, and that's God.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people say, are you running as a Democrat? Are you running as a Republican? First, I'm just running as Jonathan Atami.
Yeah.
And I'm running to do the right thing. And that isn't a Democratic value, and that isn't a Republican value. That's a Christian value.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm running to do the right thing. I think people are afraid to go against their party.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm going to do what's best for the people of Los Angeles County. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do what I believe is morally and ethically the right thing to do. And that has to do with public safety. And so if somebody doesn't want to vote for me because I'm not going to side with radicals on either side, then don't vote for me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I think at the end of the day, God has a plan for everybody, and He has a plan for me.
Yeah.
And I have to trust that as much as I can. And so I think that they're too afraid to go against their party.
Mhm.
I think they're too afraid to do the right thing. They're afraid that they're going to lose certain seats or certain, good things or this or that. And they also don't care about people.
Sure.
And children can't vote. And so you have a large group of politicians that can care less about children because they can't vote. And so I think that they just do stuff that helps them. And so for me, I just think that I'm going to do my best to do the right thing. And if that's sometimes siding with Republicans, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
If that's sometimes siding with Democrats, I'm going to do that as well.
Okay. I'm going to throw out a couple of questions here that was based on your website. I went through it a little bit. You'd said if you click the little plus thing there and then you get your positions, it says I'm generally opposed to the death penalty. And I guess my question to you is why is that and where does that hesitation come from?
So I could tell you this. In 2012, the voters passed capital punishment. In 2016, they again passed capital punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So George Gascon says he's never going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
What discretion means is you're going to say times where you are going to use something and where you aren't going to use something.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was voted in as the district attorney, I would impose discretion on capital punishment. And I would say this: it has to be the worst of the worst type of crime. So murdering a child, sexually assaulting and murdering a child, killing a police officer, going into a school and mowing down 10 or 20 children.
That would be pretty bad.
Yes. And we had 100% evidence.
Mhm.
So we knew beyond all doubt that the person did it.
Mhm.
Then I think those type of cases should go to a capital punishment committee. And if the committee determines that, and the committee would be made up of district attorneys,
Mhm.
and if the committee determines that this is a capital punishment case, then we bring it to the jury.
Mhm.
So that's my discretion. I think district attorneys could have their own discretion. People have discretion on 3 strikes. People have all sorts of discretion. I think it's better to do a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
So it really isn't a hesitancy. It's more of, I've done death penalty cases.
Let's just be real cautious going forward with
I've
this.
had experience with death penalty cases. We have to understand that we can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be 100%.
Yeah.
We have to understand that it has to be the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
I just believe that. If we are going to say, hey, we're going to allow the jury to determine if we're going to kill somebody or not, I think it should be the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And then if you do that, I think that you've followed everything that needs to be followed, and the jury should then make a decision.
Great.
I'm not with never doing something,
Yeah.
and I'm not with always doing something. So I think you just have to make sure that it's the right case to do it in. And so I think the voters could trust the fact that there will be capital punishment because it's been voted on by the people of Los Angeles and the people of California twice
Yeah.
in the last 10, 15 years. But it's going to be limited, and we're going to make sure that it's the worst of the worst, and we have 100% evidence.
Absolutely. The other thing that I mentioned that I saw on your website, protecting LGBTQ rights. I want to ask you: do you truly believe that this community is being targeted? And I don't mean that in any kind of funny way. There, if so, who is targeting them?
So I think every group that I feel is being targeted, I need to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Christians were being targeted, I'm going to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
If police officers are being targeted, I'm going to protect them. And if I feel that somebody's bullying the LGBTQ community, I'm going to protect them as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this: Gabriel and Anthony, the 2 probably biggest cases I've handled in my career, the parents in those cases believed that their child was gay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we could all talk about the fact that one child was 8 and one child was 10.
Sure.
I'm not sure anybody knows at that age any of those things. I think we have a population that's trying to influence children, which I'm against.
Yeah.
But we at least had these defendants who believe that.
Sure.
And so to me, and especially as a Christian, if I hear that people want to hurt or kill somebody because of who they perceive somebody is, as a district attorney, we're going to make sure we prosecute that.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing: at the end of the day, people are still people.
Yeah.
We still have to believe in this society. We still have to help people who are bullied.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm walking down the street and I see somebody being bullied, I'm going to do something about it. That's just the type of person I am. I'm also against people picking on Christians or people picking on different groups or races or religions, not just LGBTQ. But I do think it's important to let people who feel that for whatever reason that people bully them, hey, I'm going to be a district attorney for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's something good to talk about. I don't think it means that I'm not going to fight for every different group. I think that our Jewish community was targeted quite a few years ago, and they need to realize that we're going to fight for them too.
Yeah.
And what's important, I think your listeners need to know, Pastor Cook, George Gascon got rid of all hate crimes when he took office. Can you believe that?
I saw what you said on your website.
He got rid of all hate crimes, even hate crimes against a lot of these groups that he talks about. So I think it's important. Look, Israel gets attacked almost every day.
Yeah.
That to me is bullying. That's a small little country surrounded by a large amount of people.
Yeah.
And they're up there fighting for their survival every day. And so to me as a district attorney, I believe in fighting for the little person. And so if I feel somebody's being bullied or something bad is happening to somebody as a result of what everybody perceives or what's actually accurate, I want to say something about it. I want to make sure everybody, believes that people have the right to be free in this country.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means doing something that I might not agree with.
Yeah.
But that's why this country is so great, because we have the right to have our own opinions. But then we have these groups that also try to stop us from having our opinions too.
Exactly.
So I'm free to walk down the street, and I'm free to not be attacked by people who are unhoused or want to hurt me. And then the unhoused are free to do what they want to do also. But one freedom doesn't trump another freedom.
You got it. We're talking to Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami, who's trying to replace George Gascon in the 2024 election for LA County District Attorney. And we're going to wrap it up here in just a few minutes with a few more questions. But listen in here on Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. All right, we're back here live on Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. We're going to wrap things up here with Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami running to unseat George Gascon. Well, we all know here in California that we have a jungle primary, and of course that means that the top two candidates go forward into the November elections. And I don't know of all of the guys who are supposedly running for this position. I know that there's some guys that haven't jumped in yet, Jonathan. But I know that you're the first person whose name I heard because we have a mutual friend that attends the congregation. And so why do you think, out of those who have said that I'm going to run against George Gascon, why do you think you're the best choice for the voters to decide?
I think that's a great question. At the end of the day, I'm the only one who can beat George Gascon. This race is really about me versus George Gascon.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I'm in this race to beat George Gascon. And I believe that I was the first person to step forward within the district attorney's office a week after George Gascon implemented his policies. I stood up in front of everybody, in front of the media, and told everybody that I wasn't going to allow George to do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I stood up, and I believe that's leading by example and leading from the front. I believe that I can lead the district attorney's office. We can turn this around. We can bring public safety back to Los Angeles. But it's really a race between George Gascon and I. Also, George Gascon has no experience. He's never walked into court one day in his life and practiced law.
Exactly.
I've been a prosecutor for 17 years. I was in the military for 7 years. I've been in charge of a platoon. I know how to lead soldiers. I definitely know how to lead people in the district attorney's office. I do believe that I'm ready to take that next step to becoming the district attorney of Los Angeles, and I am the only one who can beat George Gascon.
What is your relationship with Gascon? I'm assuming, being that you're part of the Deputy District Attorney's office, that you're going to have to rub shoulders with him from time to time. How's that?
There is no relationship.
Oh, there isn't. Okay.
So I've been in the office 2.5 years. He's never come down to my office once.
Wow.
He's never said hi to me once. He's never communicated with me once. There was an event that both of us went to.
Hi, Jonathan.
Yes, there was
my best.
Right.
My best Gascon there.
There was an event that both of us went to about a month ago, and a lot of people were saying, "Hey, George is coming. What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll turn around, and of course I'll shake his hand. I'm going to be professional." He came about 40 minutes late. I turned around. He looked at me and went the other direction. And so you're dealing with a DA who's very childish, who doesn't understand that as a leader, you should meet with everybody, even people that you disagree with.
Yeah.
And he's just not that type of person.
Yeah. Tell us something fun and unique about John Hatami. What's something fun and unique that the voters would find intriguing about you?
I love the barbecue.
Come on. Don't we all, Jonathan?
I don't know. I love the barbecue, and I love to do that with my kids. I love hiking. So my kids and I do a lot of hiking.
Vasquez Rocks.
Yes, we do. I love the beach. We love going on trips to Hawaii. And so the kids love to go out there and bodyboard. I've surfed before. I'm not great at it, but I'm pretty good at
Yeah,
it.
me balancing that board is a unique thing.
Yes. The kids and I go bicycling a lot. We ride our bicycles all over. I do a lot of stuff with my kids. I like shooting. So, I was in the military and my wife's a police officer. So we have a lot of firearms. And so we do go shooting from time to time. That's fun. I do like fishing. Some people may not know that.
Perhaps maybe we should.
Yes.
If you win in November of 2024, we'll have to celebrate by going fishing.
I do like fishing. I love sports. We're big football fans. We love the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're a big Pittsburgh Steelers house. I love baseball. I'm disappointed in some of the things that are happening.
Sure.
But who doesn't love the Dodgers? It's goes back and forth. I wish sports and shopping and everything was just about sports. It was just about shopping.
Would be nice.
Yes, sports should be about sports. It shouldn't be about politics.
Yeah.
Shopping should be about shopping. It shouldn't be about politics. I think we've infected everything with politics, and I think that most of the people don't like it.
Yeah.
People want to go and watch a Dodger game, just watch a Dodger game and enjoy themselves. People want to go into Target and Kohl's and these other places and just go shopping.
Yeah.
And not be thrown in their face any type of politics on either side.
Yeah.
And so those are disappointing things. But I'm a pretty down to earth person. I really love spending time with my family. This election's tough because a lot of my time I'm out and about doing other things.
Sure.
And I'm not doing that. But I
actually have a church member that lives on the same street that you're on. Her name is Kathy.
Okay.
And she says, "Yeah, I see him sometimes jogging."
Yes.
And so
I love working out and jogging. Jogging's just good. I think it keeps me focused and I can think about things, but I do go jogging around my neighborhood a lot.
That's good.
I have a big German Shepherd. I like dogs. We've adopted German Shepherds. This is our second one we've adopted.
Do you like coffee?
I do.
That's good. Then there's a good reason to elect you as our next district attorney. That'd be great because I love coffee. Now, if folks want to support you, they want to, maybe you got an upcoming rally or something like that, where would they go to find you on the web?
So I would say if anybody wants to support me, vote for me, or donate money to me, go to jonathanhatami.com, JONATHANHATAMI. I want your support. I want your vote. I will tell you this, please. Let your family know, let your friends know. Voting is important. And I know so many people now feel so disillusioned.
Yeah.
They feel how somehow their vote's not going to count, something's happened, this or that. I'm going to tell you this. We need to all get out and vote.
Yeah.
Just because maybe there's something happening or something not happening doesn't mean we should quit. Doesn't mean we should stop.
Yeah.
We still need to get out and vote. Vote early.
Yeah.
Vote early. Do the best you can with the situation we have now. I know it's a difficult situation. These absentee ballots being launched out to every household, it's definitely opens up issues for fraud. It just does.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea, but it is the way it is.
It is.
And so we have to accept it. And if we want to elect people that are like-minded, that want public safety, we need to get out and vote. So I hope people vote for me. I hope they tell their friends they vote for me and hope they support me.
I tell a story to my congregation because I have a few people that are always disillusioned about voting and then, the vote's not going to count. And I got on Mike Garcia's bandwagon real early when the news broke about Katie, whatever her name was, the young chick, the little girl that was in Congress there that beat Steve Knight. And he ended up winning in that November by 333 votes. And we were on pins and needles for that week as the vote tallies were going back and forth. And I just told my congregation, I said, listen, this man, of course, he won comfortably last November, but in 2020 it was 333 votes. And I says, listen, your vote counts. And that is something that could be the difference maker in LA County for a guy like John Hatami.
I mean, you're 100% right, Pastor. There's 6.5 million voters in Los Angeles County, and many people don't vote. Mm-hmm. And so many people are tired of George Gascon. If you really want George Gascon out on March the 5th, 2024, that is the primary, people need to get out and vote. Vote against George Gascon and vote for Jonathan and Tommy for your next Los Angeles District Attorney.
Well, I'm excited to have you on today, Jonathan. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on Politics in the Pulpit. Hopefully, we'll have you on again in the future, sometime this year, perhaps maybe next year. And looking forward to seeing you on July 2nd for an event at our church as well. And again, check out Jonathan and Tommy online. We will see you next week. I don't know who the guest is next week. We might have someone. We may not have anybody. Who knows? But Pastor Cook will be here. Again, you're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. We'll catch you next week. Take care.